It's been several years since I put out a video called Windows 11 Must Be Stopped. Blah, blah, blah. Dire warning, you know the drill. You're probably here on this channel because you found that video, be it recently or several years ago when it took off. But regardless of why you're here, several people have wanted me to express my thoughts, given that it's been a long time since that happened. And, we've been living with 11 for a while, and it's gone through quite a few interesting changes over time. And back when I made that video, the whole AI explosion hadn't quite caught on. We were pretty early in that process. And now the AI apocalypse is upon us, and everybody wants to shoehorn AI into everything that ever existed. And it's quite frustrating, to be perfectly honest. My thoughts on Windows 11 are mixed. To some extent, so far, it hasn't been as horrible as I had thought if you have newer hardware. Now, older hardware and Windows 11, that can get rough really, really fast. You can tell that the people who worked on Windows 11 definitely used SSDs, because if you put Windows 11 on a hard drive, you're screwed. But then again, if you put Windows 10 on a hard drive, it usually wasn't a great day either, but it was workable. 11 is definitely designed with modern hardware in mind, and that's not necessarily always a good thing, especially when you may not have modern hardware, or maybe the only modern hardware that you can afford is a Celeron instead of a rolling brick, like whatever the hell that thing was. What was that, actually? I don't know, and I honestly don't care that much. But if you get Windows 11 on your computer, it's very frustrating. See, I've gotten to the point now, since 10 is imminently about to go end of life or whatever, at least, they're not going to give you free updates anymore, and they're very loud about how, you need to move to Windows 11 for security and such. I have to put Windows 11 on computers because people ask for it. So I am pretty firmly in the I have to install Windows 11 on a regular basis camp. I will say, if it wasn't for things like Rufus, that would be more annoying, because Rufus has checkboxes to disable the whole forced Microsoft account thing, and you get the idea. Fortunately, my image drop software lets me drop a pre-built image where I've already done an install and set it up, and I don't have to worry about that. I have run into issues with Intel's storage drivers, but those issues exist whether you use 10 or 11. 11 happens to come with some, but not all, of the storage drivers required for Intel's weirdo VMD things on laptops. So, in that regard, it's not much better. The last one I did, I actually had to manually inject the Intel RST driver. What was it? It was the version before the most current, because the most current version of the Intel RST driver doesn't work with like the 11th or 12th gen VMD hardware. So if you get the newest driver, it actually won't boot. But if you get the driver immediately previous to it, it will. But on a newer machine, the reverse is the case. But the drivers have the same information file name and driver name and service name. So you can't have an image that covers both machines. You pretty much have to boot it into automatic repair and shoehorn the driver in manually. It's a whole process. It's a major pain, but that is more of an Intel VMD driver problem than anything else. Although the computers that come with these driver gross missteps by Intel, they all came with Windows 11, so at least it's tangentially related. The image that I just made very recently, I made a Windows 11 image that I stripped it down as hard as I could, and I put all of these basic drivers. I even put the touchpad driver in the recovery image because having a mouse is nice. So I'm trying to work with Windows 11 on these new machines, but I find that it is a lot more frustrating than I thought, especially on newer equipment. One particularly frustrating aspect of it is on newer hardware, memory integrity in Windows Security or Defender or whatever you want to call it will be enabled by default. Memory integrity is supposed to make things more secure, but the problem is, A, it virtualizes like everything such that they're isolated. B, it's a significant performance hit. C, it causes some programs to not work properly. So there are a lot of reasons why memory integrity is a theoretical security boon and a realistic performance and compatibility pain. Turning off memory integrity on Windows 11 or Windows 10 if it happens to get turned on, but I find that doesn't happen. But turning off the default on memory integrity setting makes a humongous performance difference, especially on lighter machines like the i3s and such. You really do notice a difference. It's pretty shocking how much of a difference it makes. And I had a machine that it was sluggish considering it was like an i7, turned off memory integrity, rebooted. Oh, what's this? It's running a lot better all of a sudden. I wonder how many of the problems with the excessive RAM consumption and the slowness, laggy, CPU, whatever, I wonder how many Windows 11 problems are caused by all of this default on BitLocker, even in the home editions. Default, they call it device security, or something like that. It was a different word they used, device something. But BitLocker exists in the home edition of Windows 11 and 10. This happens on 10 too. But 10 usually is not the one I have a problem with being aggressive about turning on BitLocker by default whenever you log into a Microsoft account. So BitLocker and memory integrity and a lot of these security features, Windows Defender even, all antivirus or security software imposes a penalty. But these layers, they exponentially affect the computer because you stack one on the other, and it gets pretty bad. And like I said, if you're running older hardware, the situation is even worse. So you take all these slowdowns out of the box that thankfully some of them you can configure back out. And then on top of them, you put a Celeron or Pentium, or, if you're actually running a 7th gen or 8th gen chip instead of a 12th or 14th. You stack all this against it. Oh, wow, what's this? My slow computer somehow got even slower? Who would have guessed? Who would have thought? And that's just the performance side of things that I find pretty frustrating. The UI side of things is also quite frustrating. Microsoft Edge pisses me off to no end because they keep changing the settings, the setting locations, they have settings panels that are collapsed in on each other, and you have to go several levels down, for example, to turn off the thing where Microsoft Edge starts with your computer and runs a whole bunch of, a full web browser in the background even when you're not using it, even though you didn't ask for it. All those settings are buried. It used to be all the privacy and, let Microsoft Edge be helpful to you settings. We're on one page and I could just go tick, 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 tick and turn them all off. That's not the case anymore. Now they're buried all over the place. And you have to go fishing all over the place. And I don't recommend using Edge anyway. But frankly, since Edge still allows ad blockers, it's still better than Chrome in that regard. Chrome doesn't let you use any ad blocker that actually is functional anymore, which means that you're at high risk of landing on a scam page served up by a malicious ad. Trust me, I've had customers get scammed at a rate I've not seen since the XP days, because I gave them all uBlock Origin, and then Chrome killed Manifest v2, which meant uBlock Origin stopped working. So Chrome is absolute dog cancer. I was going to say dog something else, but I'm trying not to curse in this video, so maybe YouTube will be just a little bit nice to it in the old algorithm. Maybe not mark it as unsafe to a 13-year-old who's probably already seen some interesting videos on the internet, shall we say, already by then. But yeah, Edge is pretty bad. The performance is bad. The UI is bad. The UI is actually a big disaster for me. They keep changing what you can and cannot do with the Windows Explorer interface. I don't like that you can't use small icons anymore. The fact that you can move the start menu back to the left, which is where it should stay forever, that's good. There was one of the features in the taskbar that they were going to take away, but I think they put it back or they didn't take it away because people got really angry. I believe that was the ability to have the labels beside the icons. I don't like some of the most important features of the taskbar that I have found are the features where you make it look more like Windows 95 or 98 or 2000's taskbar. The ones where, starts on the left, and it doesn't use large icons, and it doesn't combine all your items on your taskbar, so that now you have a multi-tier taskbar that requires gestures where you hover and wait to be able to switch between open windows. And if a window happens to, say, pull a pop under instead of a pop over, you don't see it because it's buried as a little teeny tiny sliver on the edge of an existing open window button at the bottom. All of these things, they are ideas that somebody thought were good ideas, and they were actually really bad ideas. Now, I can understand taskbar combining if there is so much going on that you can't, there's just literally no room to put the stuff on the taskbar in the first place. But they had a solution for that already in place. They had that for a long time. The taskbar would automatically go multi-level once you had so many buttons that the taskbar could no longer hold everything on it. You would actually have an arrow. You would have a little scroll on the right of the taskbar that would let you scroll the taskbar itself. So once you got to the point that you had a billion File Explorer windows open or whatever, you would actually be able to go through a set of levels of things open so that it could still compensate without collapsing everything. But no, we can't have things like that because you know what? That makes the user interface that makes it adapt to the situation, and users are stupid. We can't have users, stupid users, being given some sort of an advanced tool where they can, see what they're running, or switch between things that are running, or see that there's more than one window open in a program on the taskbar. The taskbar, the thing whose only purpose is to be able to switch between the open windows, and eventually they made it so that you could also launch new ones. But the whole purpose of the taskbar is so that the user can manage tasks. What's the point of the taskbar if really all it is just a glorified start and launcher thing? If you can't even see the windows that are open on your machine and flip through them, what's the point? Why is it there? I wonder sometimes if that's what they're going for. But they already did that. They already had a thing where you didn't see anything and then you were able to just call things up, on demand, but they're out of your way when you're working. That was called Windows 8. There's a reason Windows 8 failed horribly, and 8.1 was rather quickly followed up by 10. Windows 8 and 8.1, they only lasted 3 years before Windows 10 came out. That's two major Windows releases within a year and a half. And then Windows 10. And in Windows 10, they removed all of that because it was stupid in the first place. The full screen start menu, stupid in the first place. Even on a tablet, there's no need for it. The problem is you shouldn't be catering to tablets in the first place. You shouldn't be designing an operating system that makes compromises when on a desktop for a tablet. And in Windows 10, they've really at least tried to unwind their stupid tablet stuff. They spent years trying to get the tablet stuff figured out. Finally, they got it to where the tablet stuff doesn't interfere. And you know what? When I run, I have one or two actual bona fide Windows tablets. When I pick one of those up, you know what I do? I leave everything the way it is for a desktop because I don't operate a Windows tablet. I don't run that so that I can feel like I'm on an Android phone or an iPhone or whatever. I run that because I want to run a normal computer that doesn't require me to carry the keyboard with it. A lightweight one that's easy to carry around. That's the only point of a tablet. So yeah, okay, if you want to make touch targets bigger, why don't you just lower the resolution? or scale things up. You spend a lot of time scaling things up. Anyway, this wasn't meant to be a tablet rant, but they've continued to tabletize Windows 11. The whole thing is just like, oh, let's make everything so it's easier to use on a tablet. They're doing the same things with 11 that they did with 10. Take away features that people use because those features might be difficult to use on a tablet. The thing that the vast majority of people running Windows aren't even using. I'm sorry, but most people are not running a friggin' Microsoft Surface. With good reason. The Microsoft Surface is a garbage computer. It's not good. I understand that if you have a niche need, if for some reason you're a OneNote enthusiast, that the Surface is probably the greatest thing since sliced bread. But as a general purpose computer, tablets suck. Touchscreens are the worst user interface ever created. It just sucks. I'm better off with a gaming controller as the user interface or as the mouse or whatever than I am with a tablet with a touchpad. I hate tablets. Most people are not on tablets if they're running Windows. What are you people doing? Why are you making it so that the start menu is in the center? You're not a phone. Stop being a phone. But no, we're like 3 or 4 years in, and they've still decided to go the whole phone route. Oh, you know what? You know what really makes me angry? There's so much padding, so much empty space, so much white space around everything. You know, files, in Explorer, you can go to view, and depending on which edition of Windows 11 you're running or which version feature update, view will show you either everything in one menu or there's another one that, like, it's a sub-menu and it lets you show, it lets you compact the view so that you can see, like, if you could see 20 files before, now you can see 30. It takes some of that white space away that's in between file names. I'm not on a tablet. Why is there all this empty space between the file names in the first place? But a better question, why is it that that doesn't work on quick access? You know, you shovel people into quick access by default, all their little quick shortcuts and recent documents, which for a normal user makes sense. But if you've got the compact view where it reduces white space, why does that not apply only to quick access? That's really weird, don't you think? They've somehow managed to make the file system structure in File Explorer even more annoying than it already was. So let me give you an educational tour. If you don't understand anything about Linux or me murdering mosquitoes, dead mosquito, if you don't know anything about Linux or Unix or Mac OS or whatever, the underlying structure of these systems is that the file system is what they call a virtual file system, or VFS, and there's a root directory. It's just a /. Windows uses backslashes, but the concept is the same. So everything in a Unix-like operating system starts at the root directory, just the /. And then everything gets attached onto that. It's called mounting. So you put in, let's say you put in a flash drive. Usually the operating system's graphical interface components, there's a library underneath that it watches for those events where you plug in a new volume or whatever, and it auto mounts that volume somewhere under a media folder or a volumes folder on Mac OS. So now if you want to see the contents of the flash drive, let's say it's called 32 gigabyte, it would be under /media or /volumes /32 gigabyte. And there it is. It's all there. But the point is, it all starts from the root directory, which on some systems isn't even a real device. It's just like a RAM disk. But on most systems, it's a partition of your SSD or hard drive, the one that you booted from. It's the main system partition. And then things are just attached on there, and they effectively become folders. That's what mounting does. It takes a folder and it makes the contents of something else visible as if it's just that folder. And it makes a whole lot of concepts arguably a lot simpler to understand. Now Windows, it goes all the way back to, believe it or not, it goes all the way back to CP/M, which is an operating system primarily used on business computers based on the Zilog Z80 back in the late 1970s. CP/M was the precursor to DOS, and they've kept the drive letter convention ever since. That's why you don't have an A or a B. That's why your main drive starts at C, because A and B were the two floppy disk drives that you could optionally have installed in your computer. And I have to be frank, the drive letter concept is not that bad. It actually does make a lot of sense to assign some sort of separator between the different physical devices and logical file systems and volumes and such. It makes sense to have, like, this is one letter, this is one letter, this is one letter, because it gives you conceptually this notion that they're separated. Now, wait a minute. This is supposed to be a Windows 11 follow-up. What does this have to do with Windows 11? Well, boy, oh boy, well, I tell you, in Windows 10, they still had quick access as the thing that came up. And then in Windows 11, they also still have quick access as the thing that comes up. You open File Explorer, you get quick access. That's the way it is. It can be configured so that if you open File Explorer, you get this PC, which used to be just called My Computer back in the Windows 95, 98 days, and then eventually it was just Computer as of, I think, XP or maybe it was Vista. It just became Computer, and now it's this PC, but all of those are the same thing. What does this PC, aka My Computer, do? It shows you all of the drives in your system. My Computer / this PC function as logically to your brain the root directory in Unix or Linux, whatever, Mac OS, take your pick. The root directory concept on Windows is served by the concept of this PC or My Computer, but they don't bring that up by default. Now, there's a workaround for this, of course. You just switch it. But even if you switch it, they have this nifty folder sidebar on the left that lets you see this PC, and quick access is at the very top. And admittedly, I use the crap out of that. I know a lot of people who do. It's a good feature, and I like it. I don't like the quick access page, but I like the quick access section in the folder sidebar. That works great. What doesn't work great is the way that Microsoft has changed the way that the folder panel works. So in Windows 10, a frequent thing that I would do is change the sidebar settings to expand to the current folder and, most importantly, show all folders. Because otherwise, it collapses a lot of stuff into a simpler hierarchy that ironically is harder to navigate. Unfortunately, showing all folders in the folder sidebar has the unexpected side effect, the unfortunate side effect, of showing you a lot of extraneous stuff. But one of those items of extraneous stuff is your user account. Your user account, where everything that you have is supposed to be stored. So when I need to educate a user, all I have to do is tell them, hey, your user account is in the folder sidebar. See that there? It's usually, if I've done the install, it's usually called owner. So if you need to get to all your files, click owner. This actually came up recently. I had a customer who I gave we got him a new laptop. He was replacing a 12-year-old Windows 7 machine that I built for him, and he was only running Adobe Audition. He's a radio guy. Well, this guy, he's great when it comes to producing radio shows. He's not so great when it comes to the computer side of things. He is very much a normal user. He's a smart guy, but everybody's smart in their own way, and computers were not his way. Broadcasting, yes. Computers, no. We solved a major problem with his workflow while I was there. And that problem was that he was using the Audition interface to open the file, and he had to do all this extra clicking around just to be able to go dig up files and open them. I was able to tell him, open File Explorer, just open down there, the manila folder, yes, that's right, and click Owner on the side there. I even pinned it to his quick access. Go to Owner, go to the search box, type the term for the audio file you're looking for to put in your show, and it scans your entire user account. Holy crap. you would think that I gave this guy a Christmas present. It was like revolutionary to him. Within 15 minutes, he's clicking around like there's no tomorrow, putting he was actually putting his show together, not like I thought it was a test. No, the man's putting the actual show together live right in front of me. And he's doing it almost as fast as I would. Because the features were set up correctly so that he could do it. And they were easy enough to access and understand, even for a normal user that has a little bit of experience, that he could just boom, 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 and he's done. He became familiar extremely quickly. It was intuitive and easy. I had to hammer a few things to get it there, but once it was there, he was set. I actually haven't heard a single thing about problems from him other than one glitch that happened that self-resolved somehow. Just had to get a little bit of that call the computer guy dust on it. So this guy is able to do all this stuff because the things in the side were easy to find. Now, I gave him Windows 10, brand new computer, but I gave him 10, not 11. He was moving up from 7. 11 would be a bit of a shock. In 11, they changed the file explorer so that now if you do turn on show all folders, it shows your user account, but it doesn't show it with the little man. You don't have the icon of the little person as your user account. It just looks like a folder. So now it's a whole lot harder to point it out to someone because they have to look for the word in a sea of words. So desktop documents, downloads, music, pictures, videos. These are the 6 by far most commonly used user folders. They have special icons. They have special meanings in the operating system and file explorer and browsers. They are special folders and they have special icons. But now the user's home folder, the place where all of the data is, in 10 and before, it has an icon of a little guy. Without that icon, he goes and looks for it, and what is it? What would he see? He won't see that. He will see a folder. So he has to know where it is. He has to memorize other information. If he looks over there, now he's got to know that he's looking for owner, but it's not that simple because in a giant pile of words, especially for a normal user, picking out one word in a sea of words is not so simple until you get used to it, which, yeah, eventually you get used to the crap factor, but that's not good enough. The point is that before Windows 11, this man right now, he's on 10, right now today, he can find that little man icon without looking at any words. He can look at the color, the shape, the general distribution of the colors, and immediately, without even thinking, muscle memory, go to that. That's where all the stuff is. That's where I run the search. But if he were to get Windows 11, he would be so screwed. He would have to find owner. Well, the problem is this thing holds open any folders that you expand in that folder pane. They're going to potentially still be expanded when you go back in there. So now you may have a huge heap of folders. The whole expanding and closing, open close folders in the folder pane thing, that's a pain in the ass. And unfortunately, with that, plus the lack of that icon, he can't just scroll up and down and look for the picture, which is something that humans can easily and intuitively do. We are heavily optimized to spot images of certain things that go by our eyes really quickly. We are not optimized to spot letters in seas of letters quite so well. And I know I've dwelled on this point for a long time, but it's a great example of what a normal user would suffer if they went from 10 to 11. Other thoughts are updates. I don't care. Windows 10, there are going to be ways to lie to Microsoft about your eligibility for the Windows 10 update program after the end of life or whatever that you're supposed to have to pay for. So I would just use those if you want to stay on 10 and you're worried about security updates. Just lie to Microsoft and keep getting extended service updates without paying for them, because screw them. Other things, let's see. Windows 10, what else can I say about you? Everything gets Copilot shoved into it. I find that to be highly annoying. I don't want AI. No one wants AI. Leave the AI out of my stuff, especially my core system stuff. There's no reason for Copilot to be hard-coded into things like Windows Explorer. There's no reason for Recall to be hard-coded into things like Windows Explorer. There's no need for any of that crap. There are a lot of things about Windows 11 that I find highly annoying and very user hostile, but they don't care. I mean, that's the ultimate lesson here, is Microsoft doesn't care. And they don't care because they don't have to care. Why should they? I mean, all that matters is that you're siphoned into the Windows ecosystem. You're using Microsoft Office. You're using Windows 10 or 11 or whatever, so you can access the Microsoft Store so that they can siphon money out of people through the Microsoft Store so that you're stuck with Microsoft products. Oh, you want to share files with more than 20 computers? Well, I guess you got to go from Windows whatever Pro to Windows Server. See? And that's the thing, is you will have to get a Windows Server if your little tiny business gets too big for its britches, which means a whole lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars. But you wouldn't have to do that if you got a Linux server running Samba, and then all of a sudden you can serve thousands of users all at once and not have to pay any licensing fees to any bloody bastard at Microsoft. Oh well, I guess this video is not kid-friendly anymore. Too bad. Yeah, Windows 11, just there's so much to hate about it. I find that while a lot of the pain in terms of its behavior can be mitigated, it's not fully possible to do it. I actually just installed Windows 11 fresh on a computer not that long ago, and even after killing the Microsoft Edge running in the background by default without asking nonsense, Windows 11 uses like 3 gigabytes of RAM when it's sitting there doing nothing. Like, it's literally doing nothing. There's nothing of value happening, and it's siphoned up 3 gigs of RAM. What do you need all that RAM for, dude? Why? What's the point? Yeah, I can understand why you can't run 11 on a 4 gig machine. Unfortunately, there are a lot of actually decent machines that just happen to have 4 gigs of RAM, and yeah, they're gonna pretty much be obsoleted by Windows 11. Now, granted, browsers are getting so bloated and awful that they're kind of obsoleting machines of 4 gigs of RAM anyway, but that's a whole different story. I really should do a separate video about how web browsers have become this monster that needs to be slain, and we need to go back to a pre-web apps internet, and how that's never going to happen, and we should just deal with it, I guess, because every application really needs to be a complete web browser and web server smashed together in the form of the Electron framework, instead of just being purpose-built for the platform, because it's better to develop quickly than it is to develop cleanly. You know, Windows 11 kind of is the better to go do it quick than do it right operating system. And for the record, they still have not managed to get rid of the old control panel, but at the same time, they have not added back a whole lot of things that were good about the old control panel. File association may be the worst thing ever. You can't associate, all the media formats with the media player anymore. They've made it almost impossible to do any kind of bulk file association mapping. Notepad being this restricted thing where if you dump the cloud version of Notepad and go back to the normal one, they rig it so you can't associate it with anything by default. I mean, I can't deal with this crap, and I'm not going to deal with this crap. I would rather fight with people not driving fast enough, which is what I'm doing now, than to deal with all this crap. So I'm gonna keep my workstations where I have to have Windows on Windows 10 for the foreseeable future. I don't foresee Windows 11 being required for me anytime soon. There's really only USB 4 and a couple of other fringe features I don't care about that require Windows 11. So I'm not gonna worry about it. Eventually, I think what's going to happen is I looked at the latest Linux Mint. I think it's version like 24, but I can't remember. I looked at the latest Mint, and I found that their package manager overhaul is surprisingly friendly. It is, you can download things like Steam straight from the package manager. For a normal person, it's actually a lot easier to get up and going, because now you don't have to fish through giant package lists of cryptic package names you don't fully understand. Instead, you can just install Steam by clicking Steam, and that's it. So yeah, good stuff's happening in that regard. And I'm looking forward to seeing where Linux goes, even though, boy, oh boy, do I have my problems with that. But maybe there's some hope for the future. If Linux can shed its bizarrely aggressive political lunatics that demand that everybody conform to this far-left ideology, just to be able to use free software, which is antithetical to the entire concept. If they can shed these psychos that are dragging the entire free and open source world down, then maybe things will actually look up and get better. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Anyway, that's enough for now. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that crap. And stay safe out there. Also, pirate everything. I'm not kidding. Pirate everything. There'll be a video about how to do that soon. Take it easy.